Thank you, everybody, for being here and for joining us for this information session for our energy storage engine. Um, for those of you that don't know, the energy storage engine is a project that started about 2.5 years ago now. It really was launched in February of 2024. And the idea of each one of the engines, which 10 of them were launched all over the country, only 9 remain at this point in time, but 10 of them were launched, was to bring economic development of certain areas of the country that were lacking economic development, but at the same time had a very promising clustering of industries in particular areas. So the NSF decided after a big award session that they would award these 10 engines. So some of these engines are the water innovation engine in the Great Lakes, right? So Great Lakes knows water, the regenerative medicine engine in North Carolina. They have a good cluster of biotech and medicine, the textile innovation in North Carolina, the semiconductor engine in Florida, in Orlando area, which has a growing cluster, and so on and so forth. And for us in Upstate New York, we were selected to lead the NSF energy storage engine in Upstate New York. The reason why we were selected to lead that energy storage engine is because we already had a lot of the activity that you needed to start a very powerful ecosystem in energy storage. What is it that we had? We have great educational institutions. This is a partnership between very four large entities: Binghamton University, Cornell University, RIT, and Syracuse University as the leading academic institutions. We also have collaborators, which are very important outfits, nonprofits, and entities of New York State, like Launch New York, New York Best, the Griffith Institute, Kodak, Intertech. So there's a series of partners of all of these efforts, about 40 industry, academic, community, and government partners that are part of this coalition, so that we can work on energy storage and really be competitive in energy storage. The funding that was assigned to us by NSF, it's a 10-year project. And this is very important because we do not build an ecosystem and an industry in a year. This is a very long effort. We are starting our year 3. We did 2 years, and now in February we started our 3rd year, and it's a 10-year project with about $160 million commitment from the National Science Foundation. In addition to that commitment from the National Science Foundation, the Empire State Development Corporation gave us another commitment of 10%, so 16 million over those same 10 years, so that we can augment what we're doing. And in addition to those investments, which is fantastic, but then there's more, we also had other complementary investments in the region for exactly the same purpose. So it is a coalition and just kind of a little bit of convenience of money that is happening right now in Upstate New York with investments, prior investments that had built NENY, or our New Energy New York, investments that the Department of Commerce had done as a tech hub, and we still have that designation, even though that program doesn't continue. And then we have other investments during the with the Build Back Better program. So the Department of Commerce had invested in the region, continues to invest in the region, probably another 113 million. We'll talk about that investment in Battery New York. But all in all, you can think of a little bit north of $250 million to really work on the energy storage space. And that's why Upstate New York right now is becoming the hub of energy storage and batteries. Our mission is quite simple, is batteries for America, by America, made in America, right? We know, and I'm pretty sure everybody that is here knows, that we lost this industry to China. Many years ago, we should have made big, bold investments in manufacturing. We didn't. We're very good at the technology. We built a lot of good technologies, but we've lost that competitiveness. And right now, there's a lot of that industry, battery manufacturing, production, packaging, that is done either in China or in Asia, Japan, Korea as well. So there's other places in the world, and we're not competing. At the same time, now it's become a national security priority because of how complicated right now it is in the world, in the geopolitics of the world, to get access to critical materials and critical minerals. So that's what we want to do. And not only do we want to do that, bring this benefit back to America and have control of the energy storage industry, we also want it to be happening in Upstate New York. We want to transform upstate New York into the battery tech capital of the United States. And I'll tell you what that means, because it's not that we want New York to be the place where all of the gigafactories are built, right? There are going to be gigafactories built in the United States, but that's not really what we're pushing for. What we're pushing for is that the technology, the interesting innovations, the connectivity of the ecosystem, the initiatives that actually drive all of this industry back, that's what we are doing here in New York State, and particularly in upstate New York. Now, we're obviously have competition all over the world, as I just said, and we also had competition internally in the United States, and that also is very important to know and to understand. We are well positioned as New York to build this. Why? Because we have great universities, great people. I just mentioned four, but there's more universities in our ecosystem that are associated with our efforts. We have great national labs. We have very good test beds, which we have been building now for over a decade. We have great startups in our ecosystem too. You know that New York has become a big hub of startups, which is fantastic. And then we have component assemblers. We have people that are doing testing. We have a lot of grants that are giving to this space. We have cell manufacturing, electro manufacturing. So there are actors in our ecosystem, and there are startups in our ecosystem, and there are industry players in our ecosystem, and all of those can really help us succeed. Now, there's also some of those in California, for sure, and you know that happens. You know it because of Tesla, and you see a lot of interesting development in the Bay Area and in the San Diego area. There are obviously some outfits as well in Texas, which is important. There are gigafactories in Nevada. There are some factories that are happening in the Carolinas too. So there's a lot of activity in the United States, and we are not oblivious to that. We're obviously talking to all of those outfits as well, but what we're trying to do is also come here and say, what is it that we do very, very well in upstate New York, and how is it that we can bring competitiveness in all of these industry? And how do we do that? Well, we have great R&D institutions, and you might be one of those people in one of those great R&D institutions. We have very dynamic startups and a startup ecosystem that is very dynamic. In California, in the east side of the United States, have more of that activity. They're really big hubs of startups, which is great. In upstate New York, we have beefed up our infrastructure. And infrastructure, if you want to do from the very basic research, characterization of materials, or analysis, or even synthesis of materials, but we also have in manufacturing, we have in testing, we have in certification, we have in cell making. So we have been beefing up all of these testing infrastructure, and we'll give you some information about that as well. And of course, we have great educational partners, not just the research institutions, but we have other community colleges and other types of educational partners, so that we can work on the workforce, right? So the workforce that this requires in the future. And all of this is powered by a series of investments that the state, the federal government, and private industry is doing. Now, the other thing that we also have, believe it or not, are downstream industries that are requiring these batteries. Right? So right now, we have a very big push from the Department of Defense, Department of War, right, about pushing this, for example, for aviation, for example, for space. Space Force wants the Navy, the Army, the Air Force. So the requirements of our military that make it so that we need to bring back that industry. And it's particularly interesting for them to be buying batteries made in America, right, instead of batteries made in China. We also have industries that work on electric transportation, but not the Tesla type of electric transportation, but commercials, what we call materials handling. Everything related to warehouses, centers, where materials are moving, where products are moving, where retail is moving. So all of that can and should be electrified. And there's a lot of industries that are working on that. And we also have very interesting opportunities in our grid. Our grid in New York is aging. It needs to be more resilient. It needs to be optimized. We're talking about a lot of potential data centers coming up in the pipeline. Is the grid going to be able to handle that? Is the energy generated enough to do that? Should we need to modernize? I think the answer to all of that is yes. But that's a great opportunity for us to add some energy storage as an important component of a mix of technologies that are going to modernize the grid. So these are not the only industries that we have here, but definitely industries that could drive that growth, because we want those industries to be buying batteries. When we say that the military wants batteries made in America, that's important. But for those of you that know, that is about a gigawatt hour worth of demand, and that is not enough, right? We want 200, 300, 500 gigawatt hours. I wish at some point in time we get to build in America the demand for a terawatt hour of battery manufacturing, but we definitely want more demand and more aggregated demand of batteries made in America. And so we're working right in the middle layer of that, connecting those great things, resources that we have, with that industry that is requiring, motivating the industry so that they really require and they're going to buy batteries made in America as opposed to just going with something in Asia or some cheap battery in China. And that takes looking at this from a broad perspective. So we're not just focusing on materials. And of course, you might think that that is the objective of NSF, but this program is under the TIP Directorate, which is less focused on basic research and R&D. That is not our mandate. Our mandate is to really focus on all of the things that make that supply chain and that component all the way from commercialization. So TRLs 3 to 7, that's really where we succeed. We're trying to push the boundaries and push startup companies and push industry partners to develop things that are commercializable. So when you think of us, not just think of materials, think of manufacturing, think of workforce, think of reducing capex, reducing opex, think of new ways of analyzing data. We'll talk about AI, which is very important as well. Think of recycling. Recycling is a big component of what we need to do as well. So all of this is the type of work that we're doing. It's a little bit more holistic and comprehensive. We have a fantastic team on the leadership. The leadership is stationed at Binghamton University with Mira as our CEO. Mira has tremendous experience in running this type of projects, previously at Xerox, then a VP at Binghamton University. And she with Heidi as our CEO. Heidi had a lot of experience working for Corning and then for a battery startup as well. So we understand the space. So it's not just academic, we understand it from the point of view of the industry. We are super lucky to have our chief scientific officer, which is a Nobel Prize winning chemist. I don't think that any of the other engines, actually, there are no other engines that can say that our chief scientific officer is a Nobel Prize winning chemist. So we do, but it's a Nobel Prize winning chemist that also has this mindset on we need to transfer this into industry and we need to make sure that the industry understands how to know it. Myself and the team that you see here, we work on the translation and entrepreneurship side of things, so really motivating that translation of that initial knowledge and scientific knowledge into real world scenarios. We have Myra that is managing our engagement, regional engagement, Tim on the Griffith Institute side working on our workforce development, and Matt at RIT who's leading all of our infrastructure projects. So it's really a stellar team, and you're just seeing the top layer, right? Underneath are people like Maya, like Candice, like James, like Clara, there's like Prachi. So there's so many people here, and I hope that you get to interact with all of us because so many people that are building this fantastic community. If you want kind of a snapshot or how you should think about the organization of this engine, think about it as three big components. So in these three big components, one is all of the efforts that we have for R&D and T, R&D and translation and entrepreneurship. So all of the work that we put there has to do with business development as well. How do we connect with industry? So everything related to that translational side of things. Then there's a big effort on workforce development. So how are we going to build and train the workforce for the next generation of battery everything, not just manufacturing, right? So there's a lot of these manufacturing places that are going to be automated. So if I do a battery manufacturing plant, it might be automated, but that might need then computer scientists to optimize. That might need other types of engineers to do some analysis, optimization, forecasting. So there's a lot of really interesting things that happen right now with workforce development. And we have a big component that with Griffith Institute and Tim Thomas leading that side. And then the third big angle is test beds and infrastructure. What we understand is that it's very, very expensive for any company, and even more a startup, right? But very expensive for any company to have to build a plant or build a pilot scale facility, build a reactor, then go to Asia to test it, and then come back, and then go certify it somewhere, and then come back. And so it's complicated, and that is really what's killing this industry here. So what we have been able to build here is a series of connective tissue on test beds and infrastructure so that if you need to do analysis, boom, you have it right there. You have great institutions like Binghamton, R&T, and Cornell that have the best analytical tools. You need to do some production. You can go to Kodak and actually do production of electrodes. If you want to do some cell making, you can go to RIT or Battery New York to do battery production. If you need to do certification, you have Intertech. So all of that stuff that you need so that as a startup company, you don't need to raise hundreds of millions of dollars to have all of this capacity. And you can actually build your technology and understand what it is and if it works with our infrastructure, and then be able to accelerate your path to the market. Now, you're still going to need to raise money, and we're also building infrastructure to help you raise money, because probably it is unavoidable. You will need to raise a lot of money for that end game. But we also understand that, and that is part of the infrastructure that we are building. So you can go to our website and you can attend these seminars and see the recordings, and you'll see the map of our infrastructure. We have a lot of these test bed facilities, analytical setting, manufacturing setting, both electrodes and batteries in the southern tier and just Western New York region. So you go from Binghamton to Ithaca to Cortland, Syracuse, Rochester, all the way down to Buffalo. We see all of these things. Now, we also work with outfits in other places on the state where we want to include other places in the state, like Albany, of course, which has great nanofabrication centers. We want to work with Brookhaven, and we are working with Brookhaven as well, now particularly focusing on AI, just attended a seminar there. So if it's in New York and it can create great economic growth, that's fantastic. But of course, we want a lot of this activity to happen in upstate New York. And if you ever need any type of testing facility or facility for anything, if you need battery prototyping, or you need some prototyping for your electrodes, or you're trying to actually do lab scale solid state cell making, you can go to Syracuse. So take a look at all of the things that we have, from Johnson City, right next to Binghamton, to Rochester, to Syracuse, to Ithaca, to Binghamton, all the way down to Long Island, to Cortland. So there's really a whole bunch of variety of test beds. But really, what we want to give you is ability to do cell making without you having to make that big investment, the metrology and analytical workhorse that you need so that you also don't have to spend that money, and then battery testing, safety, and certification. We're also moving down to put big investments in doing certification and speeding up certification. That's very important for us, right? So this is the series of services that we're offering, and also money that we can give you so that you can use those services as well. Over the past 2 years, we've done a lot of work, really kind of starting the whole process of building this ecosystem in energy storage. We brought in large companies that are very interested in promoting all of the activity that is happening, such as Toyota, Raymond, Electrovaya, BAE Systems. We've seen startup companies do amazing things like Bridgegreen and ATOs and Elementium. We've seen projects that maybe had died but now are restarting. The life cycle project with Glencore kind of restarting again. So we're seeing a lot of activity, right? Sometimes we take a step back, sometimes we move forward, but all in all, we're really seeing a lot of activity moving forward. And in less than 2 years, we were able to create an ecosystem where we had more than 60 partners actively working on projects related to energy storage. We funded as an engine over 30 different companies, some on R&D, some on the translational side. These companies ended up using that money and the results of the work that they did so that they could raise more money. And they raised about 20% of all of the funding that they've ever raised in the past year alone. So that shows you the momentum that is happening by being in this ecosystem. And we attracted a lot of community members too, because this is an area where there's a lot of these not in my backyard thing. A lot of the community members don't understand batteries and think that they're very, very insecure. But we want to put a lot of effort into changing that and showcasing how this industry can bring back a lot of good things, a lot of economic growth, a lot of great jobs, and it's actually quite safe. So that's all of the work that we've done over the past 2 years. Now, we're entering year 3 for the next phase of the engine, which is going to be years 3, 4, and 5. So it's a 3-year stint, $45 million from NSF with all of the other matching commitments. And what's important to understand about this shift, because maybe some of you already work with us over the past 2 years, is that we like the fact that we were able to support startups. We like the fact that there were some R&D projects that were very interesting. We were trying to leapfrog technologies, but we also recognize that that is not enough. I can give you money as a startup company so that you can build something and give it to a customer, but that doesn't necessarily create a customer engagement. And customers are going to say, yeah, sure, give it to me, and then not really commit to anything. So we realize we have to change that. For the next 3 years, the engine is going to become a market maker. And what I mean by that is that we are going to go work a lot with the people that are buying these systems, with the larger corporations, understanding what is it that they need to do, what are their needs. If you're doing electric aviation, what do you need? If you're doing grid, right? So what is it that you require so that you can optimize the grid? If you're building a data center, what is it that you're trying to do? If you're the Department of Defense, what are the type of cells and systems that you need? So we're doing that work on the top, so that then we can connect the lower ecosystem to those necessities. But we also can be the drivers of the discussion that there needs to be commitment. These larger industries need to be committed so that then we can get really the battery industry going in the United States. Because we understand that if they're not committed, then they're going to go back to buying something from China or from Asia, and then we're back to square one. So we are going to be market makers. And the mechanisms that we have for funding are going to reflect that, going to reflect that connection immediately with a larger market and a larger initiative. Now, we didn't invent this out of the blue. There are other players in upstate New York and all of the country that have done this in this model. We went out there and we looked at very interesting operations like initially Sematech, more than a few years ago, Sematech was driving this type of innovation. Nowadays, New York creates. If you take a look at companies like IMEC, Infotonics, Georgia Tech Research Institute, they have done this type of thing where now they become the center of gravity of an industry, but really bringing in the customers and those large payers so that all of that money can actually flow here. If the semiconductor space was able to bring tens of billions of dollars to support that industry, why couldn't we do that with batteries? We absolutely can. And that's what we're aiming to do. And we know that we can do that because we have the best people. And here I'm biased. New York is amazing. It has amazing people. Everywhere in New York that I have been, I meet great young people, great scientists, great researchers, great technical people. So people that are innovating all the time, all the way back to the 70s. If you take a look at some of the people that did innovation back then with Kodak, with Xerox, with IBM, you take a look at those people still actually engaged in the ecosystem, teaching what they know. So it's great environment to work. And that's what we know that we have that is the best, the people that we have here and their ability to work and come up with great innovations. So in the next 3 years, we will focus on some thrust areas where we talk about as expertise or thrust areas. Because if we're too diluted, then we might not get to where we want to be. But we want to use these people and their great skill and expertise very focused on 4 areas that are critical for us to bring back this industry to the United States. Number one, safety. We all know that. We need to build batteries that are absolutely safe. And there are lots of mechanisms to do that. So it could be new materials that we know, and there's been a lot of work on that, but it could be different types of manufacturing. It could be different types of cell making. It could be different types of operations. It could be different types of packing. So anything that is related to safety, it's very important for us, and we're going to focus very intensely on that side because we know that that is necessary for this industry to flourish. The other one is power engineering. It's all of the power systems. If we create great batteries and they can actually deliver a lot of this power and even intake this power, how are we going to transmit that? How are we going to make sure that all of these systems can handle that load, right? Both back and forth. How are we going to make sure that maybe a system can charge in 10 minutes or 6 minutes? Right? It's just that can be very dangerous. So not just the safety part of it, but we have to work on the power engineering side of things as well. And there's a big opportunity in doing that. Big industry players are asking us for that. We want to focus on advanced manufacturing. What does that mean? Anything that can reduce CapEx and OpEx. Think about it that way. You have a plant right now. If you were to go to China right now and set up a plant would have this design and it would have a particular CapEx and it would have a particular OpEx. We're interested in the technologies that can have that, or maybe quarter that, or even a 10 of that. So technologies that can say, I can do the same thing with a 10 of the CapEx and a 10 of the operating cost. those are the types of things that we call advanced manufacturing. And a lot of that is going to be also reducing dependence on water, going to dry manufacturing, depending on some chemicals that are PFAS, or these forever chemicals. So reducing the use of certain chemicals, reducing the use of energy, reducing the use of water, all of those things are going to be important so that we can reduce the CapEx and the OpEx of manufacturing. Big topic right now, and we want to dive into that. And if you're thinking about using robotics, yes, please, anything that you want to use that would make advanced manufacturing better. And then last but not least is how can we use this whole revolution that we're seeing on AI on energy storage? There's already players in the space and here in New York that are working on materials discovery using AI. So that's great, trying to figure out how to do better materials. But what about just the optimization or operation of a plant? We can do a digital twin of a plant, and actually we plan to do a digital twin of our battery New York plant so that we can improve and optimize that operation. How about the operation of battery systems from the cell to the pack to a whole system? How can we use AI for that, for doing faster charging, for improving manufacturing? Can we do that also for recycling, for supply chain, to understand better what are the dependencies of the people that are doing the supply of these critical materials? Maybe to find new sources of materials, maybe to improve the recycling side. So AI really cuts across all of these things. It's not just a single thing. And we're very open to anything related to AI that can help the energy storage industry. And this is not just theoretical. We already start discussions in every single one of these areas on the safety side with big industry players and even with the fire department of the city of New York, which of course is very interested in battery safety, in power engineering with BAE systems and the people that are interested in the modernization of our grid, in advanced manufacturing with companies like KTOs, which won battery manufacturer of the year last year, with Corning and Kodak as well, which are very embedded in doing manufacturing of components for lithium-ion batteries, and AI and energy storage with BAE, with Toyota, and as well with some startup companies that are focusing on that. So we're already starting on that process. And if you haven't connected with us, my question to you is, why not? You should have done it. So now do it. Let's do it as fast as possible, and let's start working on that. Now, we also have developed a menu of services for these very big industry players. So it's not just a single way that we can work with them. And this is a menu, but there could be a little bit of off menu thing here. But basically what we want to do is go to that big industry and said, okay, if you have a big unsolved problem that no one really has solved, we can connect you with our educational institutions and figure out how to do some R&D on that. So if you're a researcher on this call, think about the engine as a way for you that you can get sponsored research. Right? So work with a larger industry that wants to sponsor some research. Sometimes that industry maybe wants to do it with IP or without IP or with your own IP. So we know we handle those models as educational institutions, but that is one particular way of doing it. The other thing that we're interested is a technology that would need validation. If we have a larger industry that has, or a larger company that has a technology and they need to validate it, instead of just telling them, hey, validate it yourself, we want to make sure that they start working with the companies and in our ecosystem. Maybe it's not adopting a startup technology, but definitely work with local companies, local suppliers, the people, the programs, the workforce. So be embedded in that ecosystem, right? Now, there might be a company that doesn't, has a problem. Maybe that problem has been solved by a startup. And now we can also act as the conduit, as the liaison of that large industry with the startup. So that way the large company gets the benefit, we get with the startup, we're actually able to fund some of that work, and then it speeds up adoption of a technology. And then the fourth type of model is a consortium. Now, there might be very interesting ideas on larger thoughts, things that would require more people to be involved. For example, let's talk about a consortium in dry manufacturing. All of the things that are required for dry manufacturing. That's an interesting topic that cuts across many industries that might need a consortium. So ideas like that, we're very open to funding those type of ideas and funding these type of consortiums. And we did a very diligent work at the beginning of end of last year and beginning of this year on going out there and connecting with partners all the time, trying to figure out what does GE want, what does BE want, what does Lockheed Martin want, and we've been going one by one, really talking to all of these partners, making sure that we have those conversations and making sure that we can then relay those needs and connect to the startup companies. In addition to all of that work that we've done, We've also built a couple of products that we really hope that you use them. So what are the couple of products that we built? One is called the Guardian tool. So for any of you that are interested in understanding where are you in your supply chain, is it really secure? Does it make sense? Do you have redundancies? Are you in peril if one of those materials actually goes away? Whether you are early stage, which is a TRL 3 to 5, or you're in a little bit of a later stage, TRL 6 to 9, we build this tool so that you can go in and actually do an assessment. This is really what the tool does, an assessment of where you are. It asks you a series of questions, and as you're responding to those questions, it starts giving you some feedback and some really interesting resources so that you can secure your supply chain, understand where you are, understand if there's something that you need to work on. And we continue to work on this tool, which is really to make sure that as you're growing as a company, whether you're a startup or a larger company, you understand the craziness that happens when you do not have a very reliable supply chain. And that's important now more than ever, right? So this was not just about getting you to a national supply chain, which if it gets you there, that's fantastic. I like it. But it's also about just letting you know where are the areas of opportunity where you need to take a look at that. The second tool that we built for you as well is an enhanced database. Some of you might have used before the New York Best database. You can go to their website and take a look at it. It had been augmented with a lot of the information from New Energy New York. So now we have suppliers, we have large companies, we have startups, we have academics right now, academic labs, and academic collaborators. So this is a very enhanced database of everything that is happening in energy storage. But we also thought it's a little bit cumbersome to figure out all of these collaborators. We added a layer of AI, conversational AI, so that you can go there and instead of having to really dig deep and trying to figure out, hey, did something in our IT maybe help me out, or did something in Cornell help me out? You can ask the question. And we have an example here. You say, hey, I have a silicon anode company. I'm looking for testing facilities in New York. Who do I contact? Right? So what do I do? That's even better. And then this AI tool using specifically the information from that database. So it is restricted to the database, can tell you, hey, go look at our IT, go look at our safety testing, go to Battery New York, right? So it gives you fairly quickly the information that you need. So that's another thing that we wanted to do for you, give you access to all of this information and this database in a faster way. So you can go and take a look at the database and play with that tool. It's really interesting, and we hope that it gives you a lot of benefit and saves you a lot of time and it gives you some interesting ideas. Now, we're also deploying funding mechanisms. You might have remembered that last year we did something called Super Boost, last 2 years. So Super Boost were very quick awards between 100 and 200K, mostly directed towards technologies that were TRL 3, 4, trying to push them up, right? So trying to push them to 7, 8, getting to 9 is complicated, but hey, if we had the chance, we would have done it. And the idea there was that you needed to have a customer demand. That was super important. Someone that's demanding for it and was willing to write a letter to say, yes, I want to see this type of technology with this type of characteristics. So it wasn't just theoretical, and it wasn't just saying my demand is electric vehicles. No, it had to be a particular company that had that need and was going to look at something that you would give. So it was focused on technology, and it was focused on giving something to a customer. We're going to change it a little bit because we want now to focus a little bit more on what I told you is important, which is dry processing and manufacturing. So we want to still support those projects, but mostly for companies or startups that are working on dry processing technologies and American-made batteries or materials. So really, that's going to be more of our driver right now instead of just general. And the important part of the Super Boost Awards is that performing that work, or most of that work, gets performed in New York. That's exactly what we want you to do. Go and work with Kodak, go and work with RIT, go and work with Corning, with Binghamton. Use the resources that we have so that you're not jumping around. So that program will continue, and we'll continue to do some of those awards. But now we're going to augment it with another program that now we call Mega Boost, right? So Mega Boost is bigger than Super Boost. That's the idea. The word sounds like that. And the idea is that we can give up to $1 million per project. We're going to do less projects. No, we're not going to try to do 15 projects. We're going to do fewer projects as a Mega Boost. And the idea of Mega Boost is that this needs to be something that really catalyzes large scale, high impact market projects. So we want to see things where it really indicates that a market it's moving towards having a supply that is national and local, and it is committed to start electrifying or buying batteries from here, or really doing a particular type of manufacturing. But it needs to be larger and bolder. And 1 million is not going to be the full funding of it. So really what's going to happen is that it requires the demand from an industry that is willing to put money and effort into it. So there's going to be some money around that. We're not asking it as a matching, but will definitely require that there is some industry partner that is saying, I'm committing to really being the driver and pulling this demand up. It would have to have a partnership, right? So as a startup company alone, probably you can get most of the money, but alone this is not going to be enough. You need to show that there's a big industry just basically moving this across or pulling instead of you trying to push the technology. We will have a tech focus on projects that are related to safety, AI, power engineering, or advanced manufacturing. And if we have one project that touches in all of those, that is the sweet spot, right? So that would be amazing because these are big efforts. And we'll also look at it from the lens of the contributions that it has to Upstate New York and how that can generate more revenue and more activity in Upstate New York. So that program is already accepting preliminary proposals, and it's maximum of 3 pages, so don't do anything super crazy. Please email them to Upstate New York -engine or go and scan that URL for more information. Right. So with that, I think we'll stop. We'll ask for some questions, but I want to let you know is that I have been in this industry now for more than 20 years. And it was very tough 20 years ago to try to figure out how to build all of this. Very few resources, very good R&D, very good ideas, but very few resources in manufacturing, scaling, prototyping. That has dramatically changed. Not just because of the engine, but of course the engine, what it's doing is really catalyzing that and making sure that you as a startup company, you as an academic, you as an industry have everything that you need to actually build batteries here. And that's what we mean when we said we want the future to be Upstate New York, America Batteries capital. So with that, I thank you, and we can take some of the Q&A.
Great. Thanks, Fernando. We have a question in the Q&A already and someone with a raised hand. The first question is there a reason why Western New York wasn't part of our map showing all of our partners? Are there plans to expand into Western New York, and the recommendation that University of Buffalo could be a good partner institution?
Yeah, it is. So that's a great point because in the first 2 years when we did the initial proposal for the engine, it was really more of the southern tier, right? So, and that was kind of the proposal for economic development. It's going to be heavy on the southern tier, going a little bit up to Syracuse and Rochester. And then last year, as we were working on this, we said, makes no sense. We obviously need to expand it. So yes, we've actually been to Buffalo. We have seen collaborators there. We want to work with the University of Buffalo. We went and we visited Verity, which is in Buffalo, and it's a great battery company too. So definitely we now consider that part of our service area for sure. So Western New York is part of the engine at this point in time. Yeah, but that it wasn't at the beginning, but it makes a lot of sense. And now we have it as part of our partnership.
Great. Thank you, Fernando. If there are other questions, put them in the chat. Maya, I saw someone with a raised hand and I don't see it anymore. I wanted to know if it was lowered or if I missed something.
I didn't see who
Okay, great.
it was. Yeah, I think they might have lowered their own hand.
Great.
You can also type any other questions that you have. And Maya sent a whole bunch of great links, so you definitely need to go and take a look at those. Please go take a look at our Upstate New York website, Upstate Engine website, sorry, and you'll see some interesting updates there. Let me actually maybe stop here so you can see our faces, but you can see the webinar chat. Take a look at our LinkedIn. LinkedIn, we put a lot of updates of what's happening. So really LinkedIn is the great medium for you to be on top of everything that is happening. Take a look at the flyer for the test beds. That gives you an immediate snapshot of everything that we have here that can be of help for what you want to build. please use the Guardian tool. If you're saying, oh boy, I don't know if I'm secure enough, if I'm going to have problems because of my material suppliers, please use it. It's free. And it's a great tool to start that conversation and get you organized and understanding that. Same thing with your ecosystem resource platform and with the supply chain risk assessment agent. Use it. It really helps you figure out where are areas where you can improve collaboration or find partners, and then take a look at our programs. Super Boost that is going to continue, Mega Boost that is going to continue, and then Made in America R&D awards as well that are coming out. So there is money out there for you to do great projects. What you will find from us is support, but at the same time, we're going to push you to think bigger and to do bigger things, right? And where we think that we can steer you into making partnerships that make a lot more sense, that'll be great. Things that we don't want, doing pilot scale facilities that then end up mothballed and they don't do anything. We don't want super basic R&D that is just testing something that will not have any particular on the industry. We're not the conduit for that. NSF has other conduits for that, and there are other programs for that, but we're not the conduit for that. And what we want is really real world impact with connection to industry.
Great, thank you. And like Fernando and Maya said, our email is in the chat. No question too big or small. If you have questions about any of our programs, any of our tools, we're happy to answer them right away. So please contact us.
Okay, fantastic. So if there's no more questions, going once,
one more question.
Oh, we have one. Okay, that's fantastic.
Hello, Fernando. This is Adam, a postdoc at Cornell Systems Engineering. A research group has a battery recycling project seeking industrial collaboration. Wondering if Energy Storage Engine has any connection like that.
We have so many, Adam. Again, why haven't you sent me an email? Yes. We actually did awards for recycling companies. So, for example, Princeton New Energy was one of our awardees in the first Super Boost side of things. But we have companies like Bridge Green. We have the Glencore life cycle plant that is coming back up. We've connected before with Austin Elements. So yes, and yes. There's recycling is a big topic. We would love to get you connected to all of these recycling companies.
Great. Yeah, please email us and we will help you make those connections. Thanks a lot. You're welcome, Adam.
All right. So I think let's end here, and you have our emails, you know where we are, and please connect with us. So thank you so much for attending, and hopefully we'll get to work with you. Thank you all, and thank you, Maya, and thank you, Candice.
Thank you.